What's going on, guys? Adam Milstead here with Straight Yak'd, coming to you on the Outdoor Radio Network. All right, guys. Well, here we are, the very first segment for kayak fishing in freshwater on a kayak power hour here on the Outdoor Radio Network. Guys, thank you so much for joining me here today. First off, I've got to give a huge shout out to a good friend of mine, Captain Bob. You guys have probably listened to him on the Outdoor Radio Network. He's got a YouTube, he's got Instagram, Facebook, and stuff like that. But man, he blew me away when he gave me a opportunity to have my own channel here on the Outdoor Radio Network. And I had to jump on. I took the opportunity, and lo and behold, here I am speaking to you guys as you're either heading to work, or you might be listening to this on your iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, your smart radio, wherever that you guys can get the Outdoor Radio Network. Yeah, it's crazy. It's wild. So I know that many of you guys may have heard of me in the past on Captain Bob's show, but for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Adam Milstead. And I figured maybe the first part of this show, I would go ahead and try to introduce myself the best way possible. Now, first things first, I don't like to talk about me personally quite a lot. I like to think I'm a little bit humble in the sense that all I really care about is whether I help you in your outdoor experience. But I figured maybe we just go ahead and jump into a little bit about me. So for those who don't know who I am a former UFC light heavyweight and heavyweight fighter. Mixed martial arts was such a huge passion of mine when I was in the younger days, from age 20 to about the age 32, 33. I fought both amateur and professional, and it was in about 2016 that I've got my shot at fighting in the UFC. And for those of you who know, the UFC is the paramount to anything in mixed martial arts. Some people like to call it cage fighting. UFC is a promotion, not a sport. I do have to say that. But mixed martial arts in general, it was basically getting into the NFL. And I was very blessed and very excited for the opportunity. And I had a blast, had an awesome opportunity, which, they'll say fighting in UFC is nothing more than an opportunity. It should not be a career, because you get hurt a lot, and I got hurt quite a bit. And I don't know if you know this or not, but you do take a lot of punches to the head. So if I ever meet you guys out on the street, and then a few days later I meet you again, and I don't recognize or hear, I don't know your name, I like to use this excuse that I got hit in the head quite a lot. And I thank the UFC and just simply the mixed martial arts career for that. But anyways, yeah, mixed martial arts was a huge passion of mine. And that is, a point in my life that I realized that I could be a professional athlete. And so that's why I did it. And so, I had a wrestling background and decided to get out there and start training with a few local gyms here in the Pittsburgh area. And I ended up just finding a knack for it. Apparently, I was pretty good at beating other people up and not taking quite as much of a beating. And so that worked out in my favor up until the latter part of my career. And, just to say, like, fighting in the UFC, is not sustainable financially or even physically, obviously. I've taken quite a bit of licks throughout the years, and the biggest takeaway from it is on a physical standpoint, I wanted to have a family, and I told myself that I wanted to be able to hang out with my kids, play catch in the front yard without the limitations of the injuries that come with fighting long term in UFC. And so, when I finally ended in 2018, I walked away with, well, two ACL reconstructive surgeries, two meniscus surgeries, one meniscus surgery that implanted cells onto my cartilage, which resulted in a blood clot. I had a lacerated liver. I've had nose surgery, and I also had eardrum surgery because, training, you train with boxing gloves, and I had a good friend of mine who punched the side of my head and blew out my eardrum. So, lo and behold, it's a very brutal sport. Again, great opportunity, but not sustainable. And so in 2018, I laid my gloves down and I called it quits. And after that, I just told myself that I need an outlet for my competitiveness. Because I'll tell you, one very big problem in professional sports is when guys retire, when they hang up their cleats, when they, put the bat and ball away, when they, hang the gloves up, they suddenly lose their purpose. And for me, that was me. Like I suddenly had no purpose in my life. I had all this energy, I had all this drive and motivation and inspiration, but I had nowhere to place it. And so, me being in mixed martial arts, I eventually found my way into the outdoor world. Now, granted, I was fishing ever since I was 4 years old. I grew up on the banks of the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland. And I found the love of kayak fishing shortly after I retired. And within the kayak fishing community was kayak bass tournaments. And so I was very thankful to find that because I finally had an outlet for my competitiveness doing competitive bass fishing. And so when I started doing that, I fell in love with the idea that, you could just join these things. They're pretty inexpensive to join on a financial standpoint. I mean, you're out there paddling, you can get away with paddling a $500 kayak, sit on top kayak and do fairly decent and be comfortable enough to fish pretty much all day. And not only that, actual the actual point of joining tournaments was fairly inexpensive. So I love that aspect that I get a chance to meet new people. The camaraderie was there, and all of a sudden I fell in love with the sport of kayak fishing. And so I started mixing in local tournaments with national tournaments and had some success throughout the years. And, 5 years down the road, here I am talking to you guys about freshwater kayak fishing. So, yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. And I can tell you right now, I never once thought I would be doing anything quite like this. Talking to you guys on the Outdoor Radio Network, talking to you guys just on the radio in general. But then at the same time, having a channel that not only do I get to showcase my skills in tournament fishing and things like that, but I also get the fantastic opportunity to help people. And what a greater purpose, or what a great purpose to live for than just to simply help people. And so I took it upon myself to use my channel to do that. Through YouTube and Instagram and things like that, I got on a great opportunity to start providing some knowledge in the world of kayak fishing. And so here I am talking to you guys about bass fishing or anything that involves kayaks. Now, when I first decided to take this opportunity to do this segment on the Kayak Power Hour, I was kind of worried, a little afraid, because I didn't know if I would be able to come up with enough content to be able to speak to you guys about. And you know what I found out was they were saying, "Hey, there's no limitation on this segment. If you want to talk about your duck hunting experiences, you can. If you utilize kayaks and ducking, which I do quite often, I have a dog that I trained myself, so I do quite a bit. Now it's duck season, so that's where my focus is shifting. Um, Anything that you use the kayak for in the outdoor world, it could be, utilizing a kayak to get across a lake, to get to some unknown areas for deer hunting or turkey hunting. The world is the oyster, basically. You can just do whatever you want. And I said, you know what? As long as there's no limitation, I'm all for it. So, very excited again to be speaking to you guys. I know I've probably said that about 100 times, and hopefully I haven't bored you guys too much so far. But I just have to get out this intro, and I got to talk to you guys and let you understand who it is that I am and why I have this passion, why I feel so inclined to be able to speak to you so much about the world of kayak fishing. And like I said before, it's one of the fastest growing sports out there. It's inexpensive, it gets you off the bank, and you get a great opportunity to get to areas where other bass boats can't get to. And then, of course, utilizing kayaks for duck hunting. It's just there's so many applications for kayaks out there. So, man, yeah, I think we're going to jump into our first break here. I'm not used to this. Again, my channel, I've just been out there showcasing my skills, but now I've got to, I've got to slow my roll down on how I'm speaking because I got to save some time for ads and commercials, which is great. Happy to be a part of that and happy to help out the Outdoor Radio Network. And so, guys, we're going to jump into a quick break, and then eventually we're going to talk a little bit more about kayak fishing. But I think what I want to do in the next portion of this is tell you exactly why I think you guys should get into kayak fishing. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the second half of this segment on the Kayak Power Hour. And this is Adam Milstead with Straight Yak'd on the Outdoor Radio Network. Guys, thank you for joining me. If you stuck around through the commercial, I appreciate you guys. And if you're just jumping on, maybe on your iHeartRadio app, we had just gotten done talking, well, about me, unfortunately. Since this is my first episode or first segment on the Outdoor Radio Network, I wanted to tell everybody who I was and what made me me. We talked about my mixed martial arts career. We talked about, how I got into kayak fishing and what we're going to see on the foreseeable future here on the Kayak Power Hour. So, but what I wanted to do in this last half is talk a little bit to you guys, basically on the passion that I have for kayak fishing. And I couldn't really think of a better way to really express that other than literally write you guys something that I put together, basically showing you guys why I have so much passion for it. And I'm hoping it doesn't make you guys fall asleep, but instead brings about more passion. Maybe it might instinctively make you guys want to go and buy your first kayak and get into this lifestyle because it is fun and exciting. And if you guys do that, please hit me up on any of the social medias. I'll be happy to put you in a kayak that is made for you. So, but anyways, we're going to jump into this. Again, I wrote this because I couldn't think of a better way to express why I love kayak fishing, but also why you should love kayak fishing. So let's get into this. Have you ever felt like the weight of your normal life suffocating? Have you ever wondered, does it ever stop, slow down, or become bearable to where you can breathe and be content with how things are? Think about the everyday grind of getting up at the crack of dawn, making coffee to sip on as you drive in near gridlock traffic just to make your morning meeting on time. Then to inevitably find yourself saying, "This meeting could have been an email." All while thinking about the moment getting there, of you flipping the bird to a driver who apparently doesn't know how to use an on-ramp. Then eventually you get home to a house you get to spend time consciously in for 4 measly hours a day. Or how about when you get home and the work continues with getting your kids to practice on time, making sure they have clean clothes for the next day, dinner, TV, and then off to bed, and then at the same time ensuring that all your bills, schedules, tedious everyday tasks are in order. For most of us, this is 85% of our life. Not to mention doing what we can to adhere to the qualities of being a good husband or wife, father and mother to those who depend on us. It's daunting and can break the strongest willed individuals at times. Now, somewhere on this merry-go-round of routine, mundane activities, we find ourselves with the opportunity to do, well, whatever we want to do. For some, letting loose looks a lot like life in our 20s, partaking in a few adult beverages followed up by a few adult hangovers. But for others, especially those who relish in the pursuit of the great outdoors, we find ourselves on a game trail or on the bank of a river. Now, cue in the idea of kayak fishing. You just unloaded your kayak at the bank. Obviously rigged it with way too much gear for an afternoon of smallmouth river fishing, all while thinking about the crazy meeting you had or the guy you felt you needed to let know they didn't know how to drive. You can almost hear the chatter in your head with the people who depend on your provisions. Your kids yelling, the friends, drama and gossip, the car horns from your morning spent in gridlock traffic, and the inevitable phone ringing constantly about your extended car warranty. The noise in your head feels deafening until you sit down on this 12-foot piece of plastic. You feel the weight of the world suddenly lift off your shoulders as you push off the bank, becoming weightless on the clear, calm water. That noise, well, it sounds like someone hit the down arrow on the remote's volume. The troubles of the past and future get lost in a moment, just as you get lost in the current. You pick up the rod that had a lure tied on, that you knew if you threw it at a particular log, you'd hammer a giant smallmouth. And you sat and looked at your reels all week long, spooled up with fresh line and rigged your baits up that you knew would generate awesome bites. Suddenly, the line tightens. You instinctively draw the line up to set the hook. The rod swings, and now you've got a 4-pound bass crashing the surface and doing everything within its power to make you look like a novice landing fish. But you've been here before. You know what it's like to land big fish. You also know what it's like to lose big fish, which always adds to the unknowing, the uncertainty that I believe we all subconsciously need. You eventually get the fish in to tire and net the stubborn creature. What a great fight. A few pictures later, you watch her swim away to be caught another day. And the day eventually ends with a few more epic battles, some of who may have had the strength to pull you around in a kayak. You pull back to the bank and load the massive amounts of gear you had on that poor kayak and head back home, still thinking about that bass that gave you such a good battle. The day ends, hearing the chatter again from your kids, your boss, friends, or car warranty extenders, but this time it's different. It's bearable now. You aren't feeling like life is slipping away. You've got a bit more patience for the drivers who don't know how to use on-ramps, and guess what? Life continues. Except now, you've got new memories that get you through the tough times. See, we were never meant to be routine type of creatures. We weren't meant to sit and look at computers all day or to give 85% of our life to a style of living that might seem normal. We were meant to live in the outdoors, only coming home to a shelter, which is all it was. The woods and the river, they were our home at one point in time. But every once in a while, we find ourselves with the opportunity to re-engage ourselves with our early generational counterparts. The days when we lived off the land and trusted God with all that we need. Those opportunities keep the wild sane in a very insane normal world. So we thank God for kayak fishing, and we thank God for the great outdoors. See, if I was literally just to explain to you guys why I love kayak fishing, I don't think I would have done it justice without actually having something scripted or written down. And again, I hope I didn't put you guys to sleep. I didn't mean to do that. I just want you guys to understand why I love kayak fishing. It's really hard to explain to individuals who have never done it before, or people who even fish out of boats. You know, there's so much that we can do in this world, and there's so much that we could, look forward to. We got our weekends and things that we get to, get a chance at peace and finding an ability to put away all that chatter and that noise that we deal on a daily basis. We have a great opportunity to do that, but sometimes we mix, the great outdoors with, let's get into these giant boats that, they're loud and noisy, and then you're dealing with people backed up at a ramp, and, maybe you've got expensive repairs to make, and of course it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to fill that thing up with gas. And then again, you got kayak fishing. Think about it. Like, kayak fishing is one of those sports that it's one of those outdoor activities where you've basically eliminated, let me take that back. It's one of those sports where you get on the same level playing field as the environment. You push off the bank, you're already within that environment. You're closer to the water than you are in a regular boat and a fiberglass 21-foot Triton or whatever. You're literally catching a fish and getting splashed in the face. Sometimes, like I said before, in that script that I wrote, sometimes these bass are literally pulling you around in a kayak. Not to mention, if you guys are, listening to the other segment of the Kayak Power Hour, talking about inshore and saltwater fishing with kayaks, I couldn't imagine hooking into a redfish or a big tarpon and just allowing that thing to pull you around. It's just another way to experience the great outdoors. But I think what it does is it tends to kind of pull us and utilize our senses more. And the more that we engage with different parts of our senses, the more experience that we get out of it. Like I said, you're getting splashed in the face by this giant fish at the side of your boat. You're feeling the cold water hit you. Sometimes you're getting pushed around by the wind, and, sometimes it could be kind of tough, but that just adds to the experience of kayak fishing. It's crazy to think that we've got all this technology out there. We could do so much with it, but you get these kayaks, and granted, they're coming out and they're out of this world now. Like they're making these things pretty complex crafts, but still, you look at a kayak, it is something that was, I think, originated from the Inuit people. This is how they would hunt seals and whales and things like that. But you have this just basic craft, and you get away from people, you get off the bank. It's just one of those things that I think everybody ought to try. Man, I love kayak fishing. Obviously, you guys know that now. So I know that this whole segment, if you guys stuck around till now, I appreciate you for taking the time and listening, guys. We're winding down the last bit of this, but again, I want to reiterate on why I love kayak fishing and why I think you guys should do it. But then also, man, you can use kayaks in pretty much anything in the outdoors. And so we're going to talk about this every single week. We're going to talk about, different ways to utilize kayaks in the great outdoors. So guys, thank you so much for listening. This is the Straight Yak'd fishing channel. My name is Adam Milstead on the Outdoor Radio Network. Thank you guys so much for joining me on my very first show. Hopefully you guys get out in the water and get yacked. Thanks for watching Straight Yak.